Good morning and welcome to the new episode of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. Neighbors traditionally have certain sense of animosity. People give the example of Canada and USA as ideal neighbors. But they forget the history. There was a time when they were deadly enemies and USA had invaded Canada, so much so that it burned down the city of York, which now is called Toronto. So there's nothing new about this rivalry. For example, England and France fought a 1,000-year-old war. 1,000 years they continued warring with each other. And even then the peace wasn't there. Even now there's a hostility between the two governments. So this traditional rivalry is further accentuated when one country is carved out of another country based on hate, based on the fact that, look here, we are better than they are, we are holier, we are more honest. And that's what explains the animosity, despite all talk of friendship between India and Pakistan. Well, since I had lived in India for a longer time, much longer time than in Pakistan, I can understand why India is obsessed with Pakistan. I'm not denying that Pakistan's obsession begins and ends with India. There's no other item which engages their attention except their hatred and the content of in the comments. I recently saw a YouTube video where Pakistan's Alia Shah was interviewing a barrister in Canada, Hamid Bashani. The Bashani speaks in very chaste Urdu, and I have met him personally, and I find him one of the most articulate speakers. Ms. Shah was telling Bashani that Atal Bihari Vajpayee had conceded defeat and given up his prime ministership when he had lost a vote of no confidence by one vote. Yes, it happened there. And she said only in passing. But before Bashani tackled her main question, he said that the Pakistanis think that they are superior to Indians. They hate them so much that the jugular veins swell up when they think of India. Puffed up, angry, annoyed, and also adopt a holier than thou attitude. They think they are much more pure, much more honest, and much more having a sense of integrity. But when it comes to praising India, they take a very narrow alley. And that's true of India as well. Now let's be very honest. And when Bashani gave this long lesson to Shah, she only smiled in embarrassment. Then I happened to see another YouTube video. It was also a Pakistani, Arzu Kazmi. She takes a much more pro-India stand. The same Nazam Sheikh takes that. And it's surprising that there are some people who take a very realistic view. But as I said earlier, since I have lived in India for a long time, why is India so obsessed with Pakistan? That has become a basket case. Pakistan is an economic, political, military basket case. And you would find, if you look at the newspapers, or you watch the 100-odd TV channels, you would find that compared to the coverage given to Pakistan, Bangladesh receives a very, very small portion. And imagine it, Bangladesh in the short span has become a roaring economic progress. Its as a matter of fact, one of the Asian tigers. And their growth has touched near double digits, is almost double than that of India. So actually, our concern should be more with the people who are ahead of us rather than the people who are lagging far behind. There is no comparison economically or politically between India and Pakistan except that they have a nuclear bomb. But that's, not a matter of pride. Bangladesh economically is much more advanced. It also has a better democratic credentials than Pakistan has. And yet, Indian media hardly ever covers it. It covers it maybe 10% of what coverage is given to Pakistan. And India has much to learn from Bangladesh, particularly in terms of Sheikh Hasina's governance and in the fields like microfinance that have brought a miracle. And till today, microfinance has not made much of a dent in India. But Indians simply are not interested in Bangladesh. For them it's Pakistan, 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 all the way. One reason for that is language. The language spoken in north of India, Hindi, is much like Urdu, unless the speaker speaks chaste Urdu like Bhushani does. Still, a Hindu speaking person can get a gist of what even the chastest possible speakers are saying. India has a Bengali in common with Bangladesh, yes, but then that's only in Bengal. Only in Bengal the people would understand what's being said in Bangladesh, and most of the people in South, and East and North India would not be able to comprehend. So the hundreds of millions of Indians can understand what's happening in Pakistan, but they cannot understand what's happening in Bangladesh. Then Pakistan's perilous, very almost tragic state gives a feeling of satisfaction to the most of it. Oh, wow, we are successful, we are stable, we are economically much ahead. And you will make a mess of. And not only that, they secretly have a feeling of pleasure that partition took place. If they are not separated, India would not have been stable and getting more prosperous. Now here enters religion. For close to the 6th century, almost 6 centuries, Hindus were enslaved by the Muslims. The Muslims told the Hindus, you cannot rule, you can only be slaves, you can only be subservient. And 6 centuries of servitude convinced many Hindus that they were not incapable. There is a Pakistani commentator, Hassan Nisar, very popular in India. He points out that the Muslims who ruled India for 6 centuries were a smaller number of Muslims who came from outside. The Muslim converts were Hindus, never ruled over Hindus. That's something. The Mughals, they ruled. Khiljis, they ruled. Slave dynasty, they ruled. But did the converts from Hinduism ever rule? No. They never developed the temperament of ruling. And it's well documented that the foreign Muslim rulers would prefer marrying with high caste Hindus, but never with the Muslim converts. As a matter of fact, the Muslim converts, and they are 99% of the population today in Pakistan, they were considered pariahs by the invaders. So that's one reason, the language and the sense of slavery. The third is the food. Rest aside beef and pork. Beef, anathema to the Hindus, pork, anathema to the Muslims. Almost everything, barring these two, is same. And they are looks. In foreign lands, Pakistanis and Indians can never be distinguished. Pakistanis think that they are fairer than Indians, hence they are better looking and superior. But if you consider laterally across a belt, for example, across the two states of Punjab, a Pakistani Punjabi has almost the same complexion as an Indian Punjabi, and you can't differentiate. So ethnically, they are the same. And that makes a difference, and that's because they are the same. The feeling of identity arises, and that's why the obsession is there. Now, what else is there in Pakistan that fascinates India? There was Imran Khan because of his cricketing exploits and fair, handsome, stepping look. He had an internal following in India. No matter how much he abuses India and its leadership, still people think, well, he was a great cricketer. Now people have realized that he's a big buffoon as well. And Indians cannot get their eyes off Khan. He speaks good English. Most of the Pakistanis do not. And he mesmerizes Indians. Almost every news channel telecasts his bombastic speech, which makes no sense whatsoever. He appears to claim to have descended from Allah. And in a long line of the English prophets and heroes like Sirajuddaula and Tipu Sultan, and he considers the people who oppose him as Mir Jafars and Mir Sadiqs. It's interesting that no matter how much Pakistan claims to be not India, its lineage, its heroes and villains were all Indians. They'll admire Tipu, they'll hate Mir Jafar, Mir Qasim. So they're heroes and the villains, both, are basically Indian. Personally, I feel India should be happy that Pakistan parted ways with it. And now is on its side by itself is making a mess of everything. And what it is doing in Pakistan does not impact India. Now just imagine if Pakistan had stayed part of India with all these 220 million people. These would have been making mayhem in India, making India ungovernable. So India should be happy that partition took place, and all this talk of Akhand Bharat at times seems to be a secret death wish. And then, I've seen military officers, I've been interacting with them. They pay tribute to the professionalism of Pakistan military. Yes, they are highly professionalism, but what kind of professionalism? Military interferes, runs every aspect of the civilian administration in the country. Is that professionalism? No. They're professionals as far as the fighting is concerned. Is professionalism to fight and then cut the head off a soldier and take it away with you? This is highly, highly objectionable, but that's that. So, when it comes to taking place in India, the Pakistan army becomes all jihadis and start invoking its Allah and whatnot. And in peacetime, they are busy making money, fueling the insurgency in Kashmir, sheltering people like Bin Laden. And sometimes ridiculous. An accident takes place and they make a mountain of the molehill. For example, a missile goes awry, and the objection is, well, if it was going awry, it could have gone eastward. Why towards Pakistan? But then another piece which attracts India or makes India obsessed with Pakistan is cricket. Now, cricket is almost a religion in India and Pakistan. And this makes Indians direct their attention to Pakistan. Indians crave to play Pakistan. India might be better in terms of ranking, but in a head-to-head match, I can bet that any Pakistani will bring out their inner job and defeat India. So, there are Indian fascination with Pakistan goes on. Sometimes I feel it's an unending comedy, not of errors, but of burlesque attitudes and Indians love watching it. Their obsession is so overwhelming, overweening, almost identical with Pakistan's obsession with India. But India should be more mature. And instead of being obsessed with Pakistan, take it in a stride as a failing nation. And even then, it need not gloat on that. Because gloating ultimately is harmful to yourself. It's suicidal. But these factors, the language, the food, the looks, the common religion, the commonality in heroes and the villains, all that makes India exceedingly obsessed with Pakistan. Not as much as Pakistan is obsessed with India, but not even much less. Ideally, they could have lived in peace. They could have said, okay, now we are parted. Both the countries could have thought that way. Let's work and go ahead. But no. That rivalry, that animosity, it was so ingrained that every action that India took, or Pakistan took, was looked on with apprehension, thinking that it was aimed at the other country. They never had, both of the countries never had an honesty of perception to think that other might have something which is not anti us. So them and us, that perpetual thing, stopped India and Pakistan from being as neighborly as Canada and USA are. Despite the war, even the Suez War, burning down of Toronto, and so on and so forth, a time came when Canada and USA realized that being neighbors, they have got to live with each other. And no amount of enmity and war can solve the issues. I wish the leaders and the people of these two countries could get over that obsessive feeling, and then maybe it would be good for the country. Both the countries, in fact. Thank you.